welcome to tonight's edition of Fact Sheet live on ETV, live on NISIM 95.9 and 100.1, also live on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our handle is ETV Ghana, and you can follow us and share your thoughts with us. And whilst you're following the conversation, you can share the link on different platforms and groups you're on, so they can also follow the conversation and share their thoughts with us. My name is Samuel Ishen, and you're welcome to the conversation. On Fact Sheet, we say it without mincing words, and it's always the facts and nothing but the facts. So there's been a brewing conversation about the EC's intent to use the NIA card, the Ghana card, as a sole document of identification when it comes to the continuous registration exercise it intends to embark on. The NDC is fighting against the decision by the Electoral Commission with a CI that it is sending to Parliament for approval, where that document will be the sole document for the registration of people onto our voters' roll. What are the concerns therein, seeing that as we speak now, the NIA is still embarking on its registration exercise? Can it be the only document that we can rely on, seeing that we are people who are 18 years today and above 18 who may have their passports, who may have their driver's license, who may have other documents, and again, who can be vouched for in terms of using the guarantee system so they can get onto our voters' roll? Why is the EC pushing the agenda to use just the Ghana card as the sole document for identification? But then I ask, why not the Ghana card? Why not the Ghana card? Seeing that we have been able to register more than 16 million on the Ghana card, should that not suffice to be used as the only document to be used for the registration exercise? What makes the Ghana card stand out? And why should it become the sole document for the use in our next elections? Tonight, I'm favored to have a man who has sat on the seat before at the NIA and knows the ins and outs and can help us make sense of whether the Ghana card can be used as a sole document or not. To stay with me, because he's my guest, and I'll introduce him to you shortly. For now, I say keep glued and share the link. We'll be right back. Fact Sheet live on ETV, live on NISIM 95.9 and 100.1. So my guest tonight is Dr. William Aji, who is the former boss of the NIA, and he would help us try to make sense of what the Ghana card is about and whether we should be considering at this time to use it as a sole document for next elections. If you check the website of the NIA, they have this data there. They say that some 17.1 million Ghanaians have been registered onto their system. They say that 16.6 million Ghanaians have had their cards printed. They say that 15.8 million Ghanaians have their ID cards issued that is with them. Is this enough for us to be considering using the Ghana card as a sole document for identification in our next election? Good evening, sir, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me.
I'm hoping you're doing well today, sir.
I'm good by God's grace.
We thank God. So the whole conversation about the use of the NIA card as the card for the next, registration exercise that's going to go on, the continuous registration exercise. Let's start from what the card really, the intent and purpose for the creation of the card was or is. What's the intent for the creation of the Ghana card?
Yes, the National ID card is just part of the program of building a national ID system. And by that, I mean that the law establishing the NIA actually indicated that a national identification system should be established by the NIA. And that process involved a number of things. One is creating a national register or a civil register or a biometric register. Two is to actually link the NIA central database. Of course, the biometric register is the central database. Link state institutions and other institutions to the NIA system for identity verification and identity authentication for those agencies that need to establish the true identity of individuals that they are involved in transactions with. So you're looking at institutions such as SNIT, such as the GRA, such as the licensing authorities, such as the National Health Authority, immigration. All of those institutions are supposed to be linked to and the Electoral Commission, for that matter, to be linked to the NIA database, so that they can establish the true identity of the people that they are dealing with. Primarily because it has become evident that if you do not establish a credible identification system, you lose government revenue in terms of people who pay their taxes. You lose government revenue in terms of paying the wrong people on your pension schemes. You lose a lot of revenue in your attempt to mobilize revenue. Indeed, in addition to that, it is intended to avoid cases where people use other people's identities to conduct business, to write exams, to collect monies, and indeed even in the banking system, many of the banks have had huge bad debt portfolios, and primarily because people use different identities to borrow from different banks, and therefore they can escape. People launder money through different identities. All of these services, all of these activities benefit from a national ID system, and it's for that purpose that the National Identification Authority was established. And so, yes, it is supposed to be, and because it's biometric, it is virtually 99% foolproof. In other words, it's the best form of identification. And what is it that they are saying? Your biometrics are unique to you. Your fingerprints are unique to you. You start from birth to death. You have the same fingerprints. Your portraits, your facial, if you like, architecture remains the same because the sizes don't change. And then even these days we are doing iris scan and all of those things. They remain the same. So if you use a system to capture those, what you have done is that you have got the clear identity, the true identity of an individual. And once it's in the database, it can be used for the purposes for which it was intended.
Interesting. So we are at a point where these cards are in the system. The initial position was that these were going to be instant cards that were going to be issued to us as Ghanaians. Now, sitting where you sat before and where you are sitting now, does it come to you as a surprise that these cards are no longer being issued instantly after people have been registered onto the system?
Thank you for this question. And in fact, I've made comments about that in the past. What we established, and indeed what I established under my identification, my time with the NIA, was to print very simple biometric cards with a 2D barcode at the back, and we captured 4 fingerprints. Now, the entire system that I left behind was decommissioned on account that we are going to have, in fact, the selling point of the new system that was introduced was that the cards will be issued instantly. And that was a wrong move for very good reasons. Because if you're going to issue instant ID cards, you must have a very, very efficient wide area network and local area network on which your data will run uninterrupted and unhacked, or if you like, undescripted. So you needed a system like that, and I had not built that system, so it was going to depend on the commercial service providers. Now that had a problem because they are not present everywhere across the country, and obviously the internet access is not in every cell in the country. So that was already a technical problem that we were going to contest. The second point is that there was nothing wrong, absolutely wrong with the cards that we issued. Because even these days, even though they claim they've captured 10 fingerprints, when you go to the bank, they only take your index finger, which is what we had in the database anyway. So that program of throwing away all of that and starting a new identification system was wrong. And indeed, we have to interrogate that much more and later. That, I mean, if you offered to do instant registration, and now you're going back to the old system, what was the point in throwing away the old system?
Are you able to recollect, if you can give me a sense of the data that was captured at the time during your tenure, the number of people whose database were discarded as a result of the introduction of this new one?
Yeah, in my time I had done almost 16 million and I'd issued cards to almost 12 million. So we had the cards that were not issued in store, and we created a place where we store them and linked them to our network. So if you needed your card, you came to the front office. You would give your, if you had the receipt that we give you, they'll go into the system and they can go onto the shelf and pick your card and bring it to you. Now, the difficulty we had was the system was designed in such a way that you would do the data collection in the field, and then you come and do the card printing at the base, and then you can go back and distribute. That was the system we inherited, and we didn't want to condemn that, so we worked with it. And so, indeed, it would have been more prudent and more commonsensical to complete that process of issuing the cards that were there, and then continue the process of registering those who had not been registered under the process. Now, the next phase of that would have been upgrading the system that can allow people with their PIN numbers to go back, and then you can capture the 10 fingerprints. We had even prepared all of that arrangement. You must have heard about the $150 million that we sought to borrow from the Chinese government for upgrading the system.
Yeah.
So that would have been the next level of having the exercise done. Unfortunately, all of that was thrown out. And indeed, and I've said it again, that if you look at your new Ghana card, and if you got an old copy, check the PIN number and see it is the same.
Oh, really?
If you doubt that, just check or ask somebody to check. It is the same. So what was the point in throwing that out? What it meant was that in the national database, the biometrics that we captured are still intact. And so what was done was basically to pick additional fingerprints and then still populate the database. But then you can't, because it doesn't allow for, duplicates in the system, you would have to go back to the same source. And if once you issue a PIN number, that's the PIN number that the person takes throughout life. And so, yes, a new card has been issued, but they fell back on the database and picked up your PIN number.
Help me understand it, because in my mind, I thought that this was a new exercise which was collecting database, that it was not matching with any previously collected database.
Well, I can only say that you can ask people to check on that particular statement that I made, that it is porting the data from one central database to another and then using it. It's not condemning the database completely. What they did was throw out the cards, but the database still remained the same, it's intact. It has a system of deduplicating. In other words, if you appear twice in it, it will flag you. And so there was no point in collecting new biometrics and then creating a new database. No, it does that only once. The system is there. And so it just bit my imagination why we had to discard that. But of course, the justification was, they provided two reasons for doing that. One is that we are going to issue the new cards instantly. Two, we are maybe the first one is that we now want the 10 fingerprints. And then we are adding an iris scan to make it. But I can assure you the best the best form of identification rests with the fingerprint. So even if you took one, there are two types of databases. There's the criminal database, or the criminal AFIS, which is used by the police. That one, they take 10 fingerprints. And then the civil register, or the civil database, which involves even the four fingerprints on each finger would have been sufficient for the purposes of identity verification and authentication. So the justification for changing the entire system didn't make any sense, because we had printers in the printing room that were printing the cards. And you put that aside and then you buy new printers. The project at my time was $53 million. You can't throw all of that away and start all over again. And so for me, I think that was imprudent in trying to go along that line. What we wanted to do, the system is so designed that you do mass registration initially to populate the database, and then you establish offices and you do continuous registration, in which case, anytime anybody got to the registration age, the person can walk into an office and get registered. Indeed, it was also supposed to have even been linked to the birth and death registry, so that any time a child is born, that child is registered. In fact, the data is ported into the national database, and the child is giving a PIN number. And because fingerprints would not mature by the time the infant is born, we wait till the child is 5 or 6, and then you take the biometrics. And then by the time the child is 15 or 16, you issue the card. But they will have a PIN number from childhood, and then when they die, they go away with a PIN number. In other words, the birth and death registry takes records of people who are born and people who die. And so a simple program can be written, or an algorithm can be written to the National Identification Authority and link it up. And then those who are dead will be cleaned out of the civil register. Those who are born will enter the register as well. So that's a system that was designed, and that's the system we're supposed to be dealing with. Indeed, the big issue about the ID cards was what we call in the local language is non-fi. It's not really the key thing. The key thing is your personal identification number. In India, when they did the registration, they didn't even have money to do the cards, but they actually, if you had your PIN number, you could use it for all transactions. In any case, when you're registering online, who needs your ID card? Yeah. What they need is your PIN number. And so the ID card itself can be as ordinary as possible. If you look at the Indian ID card, the national ID card, it's just a plastic thing that the Electoral Commission issues. But the PIN number is on it. That's the most critical part of the whole exercise. If you go to a bank and then they have the verification device, and that can be used to authenticate your identity, fine. Those institutions can do that. But general operations, you just need just like your tax identification number. You don't need a card to have it on it. You need to have it lodged somewhere so you can easily use that for purposes that
you make the point about, the fingerprint capturing 10 and then the iris. But at the point, one of the things that was being thrown in our faces was the fact that this was a 140K chip with 14 applet stuff. What did that mean? I mean, in terms of difference between the old card and this one?
Yes, you see, the storage device is supposed to contain different forms of information. The chip on the card is supposed to contain different types of information and can be accessed by different user agencies. So if you have a 64 chip on your card, 64 K on your card, and then somebody, you go to the health insurance, they can access your health information on the card once they have the code. The immigration can access their information, your travel information on your card. And indeed, many other agencies, to curb this issue about ghost names on the register, you can easily use the information on the card. But you see, we've been given a sterile card, expensive but useless, because we don't have the terminals to where people can use the card, interface it with the terminals, and then the information can be read. So you're holding a card.
Is it not anticipatory that we're going to have this infrastructure in the next
Can you tell me when that's going to happen? We are nowhere near that. So what you typically do, ordinarily, what you probably should have done was to have installed the architecture for identity authentication and verification everywhere. basically terminals in many institutions. So if you are crossing the road and you want to raise it up, if you look at it, at the back of it, there's an RFID signal there, which means that if you lift it, it can lift. If you show it, it can lift the bar for you to drive through but we are nowhere near that. You know, so we've loaded the card with services and units that we can't use. We are not ready to use. We are even struggling to use that for registration, and we're not getting anywhere. So why would you spend that much money to issue a card which you are not going to use? It's not NIA's business to create the terminals. It is for the system to build the terminals. But that would be on advice of NIA and the National Communications Authority. They haven't come anywhere close. So you have a chip encoded card, a chip embedded card. Which chip you are not likely to use anytime soon. But it came at a cost. Probably by the time you even do that, you would have technology has changed. That's why we're saying that we graduate slowly from the barcode. In any case, if you look at your passport, the barcode is still there.
Yeah.
So we have barcode readers. How can you say a card with a barcode is obsolete in 2017 when in 2022 your passport is still a barcoded passport? You know, so we've done things the way that has landed us in trouble. We would have at least would have gone further with the registration of Ghanaians if we had built on the system that was there, you know, before 2017. This exercise is just a complete waste of money.
Let's come to recent events. One which is supposed to have its foundations fully rooted in the NIA card, the Ghana card, and that's the SIM card registration exercise which we are doing. And the fact that we are collecting a new set of database through the telcos. And there have been concerns about, you know, the protection of, you know, the information that are being collected, the fidelity of the information that is being collected, and so much more. Now, should we be here seeing that we have a database with the NIA and the telcos are collecting new database?
We shouldn't be doing that. I mean, you see, the biometric data in the central database is very sensitive. And in fact, biometric data anywhere in the world would be very, very sensitive. So you don't allow other institutions to collect biometric data. One, even the NIA system, we had to seek an International Standards Organization certification, International Civil Aviation Organization certification, and that's not resident in Ghana. So what it means basically is that they expect a certain level of protection of the biometric data and the integrity of the data. So if you had gone to the NIA head office, there's a whole floor that's dedicated to the server. In fact, the server room, not many people go there. You can't go there, and one person cannot go there because we've installed access control systems that would allow for basically 3 people with their fingerprints to go into the server room and transact business. And if you pick any data, the system would expose that. So it's that level of access control, electronic and physical access control, is important to prevent the people from handling other people's biometric data. So even as a chief executive, I can't walk into the server room and go and try and collect anybody, or I couldn't, let me put it that way. Or a chief executive officer cannot do that. We will have to do that in collaboration with a team. And what you do there is recorded anytime you go there. So you need that for trust and integrity of the system, because what it means is that you are establishing an international system of identity checks, identity management. If they flag you as having escaped or borrowed a lot of money in Ghana and escaped into another country, if the banks inform the NIA and they tag you, and then you go anywhere in the world and your biometrics are picked, clearly, almost immediately your crime is exposed. So the officer can ask you to wait, and then they run a quick check, and then you are caught. So it is important that the data is protected. And so the levels of encryption, the levels of coding that you have to do should be so robust that nobody can hack into that. And then, so for NIA, we establish a system where the data is protected. And that's why not long ago, the vice president, when he went to Canada, he claimed that we've got ISO certification and ICAO certification, and said that now the biometric card, Ghana card, is a passport. No, that wasn't what it was intended for. That was to build integrity for the system, and then it can be used internationally. And so that it takes about 7 seconds for data to run between the central database and the terminals. So wherever you are, once they launch a query into the database, quickly, your information can come up on the screen and they can establish your identity. Now, that's what it's supposed to be. Now, these other agencies that are creating these little databases in their offices are throwing us a very big challenge where we don't even know where and who is keeping the data and what they are using that biometrics for. It was designed.
The point about biometric information, how important is it? Because we are always concerned about, okay, my biodata and it should be protected and all. How important is it in the scheme of things?
Identity theft is a big crime across the world. Indeed, we're holding the fingerprint of the President of the Republic. We're holding the fingerprints of the chiefs, big-time chiefs. And you need to protect that because people can use that one to do a lot of things. In fact, there's evidence that somebody's identity, I don't want to go into detail of how it can be done, but someone's identity was stolen in a database in Israel and was used to commit,
a
crime in another country. It's very easy, it can be done, and therefore it has to be protected. It's a very sensitive data. It's just like a bank. If there is loss of confidence in the data, the institution that is running the identity system, there will be a lot of crisis. So it's so important that that information is protected. It's like a loss of confidence in a bank. People can withdraw their money in a day.
Would you say that we should be concerned about the telcos taking our biometric information, seeing that some of them are private firms who may want to use the data because Google uses the information collected about the things we do, our activities to, create new algorithms for us in the long run, determining for you what you see on your screens and what you don't see on your screens and all of that. Should we be concerned that our data is unsafe?
Absolutely. You see, that's biographic data, which Google uses easily. If you add biometric data to it, then we are finished. Because, we do B2B transactions. I mean, in the electronic transactions business across the world. Now, that's what's going on. And if you're going to sign off some money, a lot of money, and then somebody at the other end needs your PIN number or your identity to affirm that you are the person they are dealing with, and somebody steals it, a lot of money can get lost. So we are saying that don't allow any other institution. That's what the law says. They can do their normal, registration, but biometric registration was limited by law to NIA. So any other institution that's doing it is in violation of the laws. Some have tried to go for regulations that allow them to collect biometric information, and that's not correct. It shouldn't be the case.
All right. Well, we do have some 20 minutes, and I want us to spend the 20 minutes on the very thorny one, the very sensitive one, which has to do with the EC's attempt to use the Ghana card for the voters register compilation. Seeing the amount of premium you put on this card and how important it is in the scheme of things in terms of our plans technologically and even economically, Is that not the way to go for the EC to want to use the Ghana card?
Absolutely. We are not in any doubt at all. The law says that the Ghana card should be the main identification document in this country when it is fully operational. That's the caveat. If they finish doing it, then it becomes the main system of identity authentication, identity verification. The chairman, the NDC held a press conference last week, and these concerns were raised. We have had to raise those concerns many times that any institution had tried to push the agenda. For instance, I've gone on social media to berate the NCA for pushing this card re-registration using only the Ghana card. The NIA is simply not ready. Now, and so I find it very unacceptable for the Electoral Commission to demand of the NIA to finish the process so that they can use the Ghana card for the enrollments onto the new register, whether it's continuous registration or a new voters register. It is inappropriate. It is wrong for the Electoral Commission to insist that the NIA must finish. NIA is not going to finish. It's supposed to be a process. Every day a child is born. Every day somebody hits 18. Every day somebody hits 15. So the
that
process
caveat,
cannot, yes.
So that caveat still holds that the process can never be completed.
No, it's not meant to be completed.
Yes.
It's meant to be a continuous process.
That's the foundation of your argument, that the law says that until the project is completed. But it's a continuous project.
Yes, but you see, the thing is, you can update your register with information from the NIA. Anybody who gets to that age who can vote in any subsequent elections. But until NIA does at least a certain ratio of the numbers that require that, in any case, you see, the Constitution, I mean, if you've read the articles, the Constitution states the qualifications of a voter. And it's clear, it has never anywhere in the Constitution stated that you can only register, you can only qualify as a voter if you use an NIA card to register. No. So that's in breach of a constitutional provision, Article 42. And so we are saying in principle that don't push that particular agenda for 2024, because that process, given the challenges that NIA is facing now, will not be completed by then. In any case, it's not even 2024. By a certain date, the Electoral Commission should have been ready with the voters register. We are talking about a year, perhaps a year and a couple of months. The NIA will not be ready with all eligible voters who will be 18 at the time. So and in any case, even if you want to do that, then use CIR 91, which has a number of other options for anybody who wants to register. There can be a vouching system, as you said from the beginning. They can use a passport if they have one, and then there are other identity documents, the primary documents that can be used. You see, we have a bizarre situation where the court ruled that even your birth certificate is not necessarily a case, an identity document. I mean, that's very bizarre around the world. That practice is not. It's not known. But then that's happened. It's a court decision and we have to respect it. But you see, for Electoral Commission to insist that it has to be the Ghana card for the continuous registration, it's just a case of putting the card before the horse.
Let's say that the Electoral Commission projects that per its data, let's say 2 million Ghanaians from statistics that the Ghana Statistical Service may provide. Let's say some 1.5 million Ghanaians are likely to have reached 18 years and so have to get onto the register. Now, I interviewed Dr. Bosman Asare, and he made the point that between now and then, let's say, early part of 2024, there's room enough for these individuals to be captured, for them to acquire their Ghana card.
On what basis would he have said that?
On the basis,
just speculative.
Yes, on the basis that he believes that the NIA is going to expedite the process and create room for people to have access to their cards and then get into their system. And again, his argument was that in the leading to the 2020 elections, when the new compilation of the register happened, the argument was that it was going to be impossible for a new voters register to be done, seeing the time and the documents that it was looking for, the EC was looking for, it was going to be problematic. And he says, we're able to get the numbers and we're able to have an election. And the same can be applied here.
I won't, you see, I have my own reservations about Bossman Asari as an individual and Bossman Asari as a member of the commission as well.
What are your reservations about him being...
You see, he's a political animal. He obviously was an MPP, if you like, full soldier in the university. And they gave him that position. The first comment he made was that the biggest threat to democracy in Ghana was the NDC. I mean, as a member of an elections management body, which is supposed to be neutral, if a statement like that comes out of your mouth, then you have clearly taken the position against one of the contenders who should have confidence in your system.
But he's only an individual.
Yes.
The chair is there. There are other deputy commissioners as well.
But you see, he holds a very sensitive position, and he's out in the public talking. So for him, I have a question mark on his integrity as a neutral arbiter in a contest between political forces. So that's one. Number two is, you see, this claim that they were very successful in prosecuting the agenda of a new voters register itself has its own political implications, because they had to even go back and rush through legislation in parliament to get that thing done in violation of existing conventional practices. That's number one. Number two is, if he says that, then the CI 91, on which basis they did that particular new voters register, is still valid then. So why are you rushing another CI into parliament? That in itself prevents people from registering, disenfranchising people. And look, let them not convince anybody that the process will end. In any case, maybe this is where I'll have to add a political twist to it. I travel around this country a lot because I do a lot of training and we do a lot of monitoring as well. You would find that even the registration, the NIA registration itself, is tweaked in favor of certain parts of the country, and in other parts, they have difficulty in enrolling onto the database.
Explain, elaborate.
In NDC strongholds, when they send the equipment for registration, there are all sorts of tricks that are used to slow the process. Trust me, I'm saying this on authority. When you go to other places, it goes very fast. That's number one. Number two, the people who have been put in charge of the registration exercise themselves are political animals. And so we have cases where our people come telling us that they said, I know you will never get the NIA card. And so it raises very serious issues where in strongholds of the opposition party, the process is slow. So it is the reason why our chairman and the general secretary keep saying that, you see, rigging elections is not...
But that point you're making, how does an official of the NIA know that this person is NDC or MPP? Case in point, Amewu, who is a member of parliament in an area which was deemed an NDC stronghold. He's a member of parliament representing the people there. So that there are votarians, let's use your stronghold as the voter region. There are votarians who are NPP, and there are votarians who are NDC. How does the officer differentiate between an NPP votarian and an NDC votarian?
Perhaps what we need to do is to get the people who attempt to register and who we would do a voice pop. We'll go record them and then put that in the public domain for you to see that they are told. In Navrongo, I was in Upper East the other time, in Navrongo, the NIA registration officers told our people that we are not going to register you. And indeed, it's against the law. So, you know, things like that are very subtle ways of slowing the process in some places, or preventing people from registering in some places, and encouraging others. Some cases, they even register on Sundays in the night. In some strongholds, we can put that evidence in the public domain.
So why has it been kept? Because you would think that such crucial evidence is not out there in the public domain.
Yes, because the moment you put that out, and the Electoral Commission comes out to boldly indicate, or NIA says we are not doing any political exercise. As a political party, we have interest. You see, I've worked with the Institute of Economic Affairs. I mean, I've worked as a senior adjunct fellow in governance. And we have done a lot of work in ensuring that we consolidate the democratic practice in Ghana. What I'm seeing today, and I have the book here, I didn't want to go into any detail, but what I'm seeing today is a bastardization of the electoral process, using other state institutions to do that. It is risky. It is risky because what you're doing is that you're building discontent. And if you continue disenfranchising people, you're running a very serious risk of eruption of violence that results in other parts that come from bad political electoral outcomes.
All right.
We need to send that warning out there.
Stay with us a bit longer. We have some 10 minutes and we're going for a short breather. When we come back, there's a very prominent question I need to ask before the conversation comes to an end. Do stay with us. And welcome back. We have 9 more minutes before the show comes to an end. I'm here with Dr. William Ahaji, and we're talking about the NIA card and how it's intertwined with several aspects of our, lives, elections, communications, travel, economy, and everything. Now, Doc, before we end the conversation, if it goes to Parliament and it gets assent in Parliament, your best bet would be to go to the law courts. The law courts is also the place that the NDC doesn't believe in because you believe that it is skewed. What next?
Well, what we're trying to do at this point, and that's what our chairman emphasized, is that we use all legitimate means to avoid this disenfranchising intent of the Electoral Commission. Now, clearly, as you said, the law courts will be the best place to seek redress. We haven't reached there yet, and it doesn't lie in my mouth to say exactly what the legitimate means involves, but if you recall, that whole process of even introducing the new CI itself is flawed. The practice has been using IPAC as a consensus building agency or institution to complement the work of the Electoral Commission. And indeed, IPAC was established in 1994 when NPP was in opposition. So it gave them the opportunity to make recommendations, be part of the process of crafting the democratic path for this country. And therefore, it has been working. It's become a convention, and it's become part of the process of reaching consensus on elections. So we've conducted elections over the years, and we haven't had any difficulties with it until NPP won power in 2016. What did the president do? First thing was to engineer the removal of the electoral commissioner or the chairman of the Electoral Commission and install another person, and every aspect of the things that have been done have been, let's treat them as opposition and let's not cooperate with them. We don't go to IPAC. But then a letter was written to the party to send someone for the preparation of another CI. Then a meeting was going to be held. Now, somebody as high as Hudu Yahya, very highly qualified person was sent, the party offered to send him. They called the next meeting. In fact, they called an initial meeting, and then we got information that had been cancelled. They called the next meeting, and he wasn't informed, and then the next meeting was supposed to confirm a draft CI by those who were present in that meeting, minus the main opposition party. Before we realized that the thing had been rushed to Parliament for passage. Now, our members of Parliament interrogated the reason why the Electoral Commission, what was the mischief that they wanted to cure by introducing a new CI when CI 91 amended with CI 126 was still valid. And they were asked, they said they would go back and bring the reasons. As we speak, the reasons hadn't come. But you see, the real risk there is that in that particular, in the new CI draft that they sent to Parliament, they were revoking the CI 91 and 126, which were valid. And now if you did that, it gives you the discretion to decide, I'm going to start a new register, and because those ones are revoked. You know, to even start a new voters register again, and all these manipulations will come into play. In fact, there are different aspects. Even if you look at the CI itself, some of the provisions in there obviously are intended to create, for instance, registration will be done at district offices. Now, there's a risk there, because in some vast areas, if you place the registration for the continuous registration in the district office, access becomes a problem.
Yeah.
And then they added a very, very, something that looked like an innocuous provision that, or anywhere that the EC would decide would be a registration point. That leaves a lot of discretion to the district officer who can decide that, well, I can put you in a particular branch in the constituency. At the point you are registering, you wouldn't even know what branch you are going to be voting at. The practice has been, at least, enrollment or registration should be at the polling station or worst case electoral area.
Oh.
Now if you put it at a district, what are you trying to do? It allows you to gerrymander, it allows you to do a lot of things, and these are clear cases of violation of people's right to vote, which we are trying to draw public attention to. So we think that the CI must not pass, must not even be laid. It's now with the Subsidiary Legislation Committee. We think that it must not be laid. And we would take our advocacy as far as we can.
I have a minute more. Your successor, Professor Kenatifa, is listening. What will be your final words to him on this whole issue about the EC, the SIM card registration, and all?
On one thing, I stand with him, that they should not be railroaded, they should not be rushed into completing the registration process for electoral purposes. The NIA itself already has a task to perform, which involves making sure that the identity system is established. He should focus on that and then advise these other agencies, as he did for the NCA, that please don't rush me. Allow us to finish. When we are done, we can create a link to your system and you can get your data whenever you need it, period.
Doc, I'll thank you for making time to join us for our conversation, and I'm hoping that you, the viewer, and the listener at home were able to pick a few things. There'll be several of these interviews going forward, and so you can just jump to our website, www.etvghana, and follow some of the comments that have been made, which will be on our website moving forward. I thank you for joining me tonight on Fact Sheet. Doc, once again, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me once again.
So let's make a date tomorrow morning on the Happy Morning Show between 5:30 a.m. and 9.